So, about 2 weeks ago, the Warriors website dropped a new video game without saying much of anything. There was one post slash article about it, and that was all. Personally, I think it would be a little bit more showcased if it wasn't for the 20th anniversary, which was on the 21st, and that's basically how I found out about it. There was nothing about it, I've seen no videos, I even looked on Reddit, there was nothing. I think there was like one forum post and whatever's on the website. That's how little attention this game has been getting. As far as official Warriors games go, this is actually pretty high tier just because it's not a character maker, printable activity pages, or a game that is being hosted through a third party website like Roblox. It's actually a video game that you can play on their website. You don't need to pay for it or download it, and it's a game that they put out. It's, a little surprising. However, this game is not perfect, but I think it's actually a really good direction for official video games. I'm pretty sure I'll have some footage up on the screen, so allow me to explain this game and its function. Medicine Mission is a mobile-friendly adventure game, according to the website. I'm not so sure about an adventure game, but I'd say it's like the challenge part is, pretty difficult, especially towards the higher levels. I would describe this game more as like a timed matching and memory game that grows exponentially more difficult. It also doesn't seem to have an end goal in mind, so it's something you can just keep playing endlessly. You play as a nameless, faceless character, and you go through 4 different stages of Kit, Apprentice, Medicine Cat, and Maxed Medicine Cat. I don't know, you kind of just get free reign at the end. While I understand the Kit stage of the tutorial is like, that's just like a tutorial, it's, story-wise, like a little bit weird that a medicine cat would just allow a Kit to be healing warriors, especially because that, like, it appears that these warriors end up worse or possibly dead. It's not really clear what happens if you fail healing them, and no amount of skill that a Kit has would, make up for this. I know it's just like a video game. I know that it's just a video game and it's like not supposed to be that serious, but like I can only think of a handful of characters in the actual books that were Kits that were helping with medicine. Like, I think Shadowsight and Willowshine. It's not plot wise, and with the books, it's a little odd. So during the Kit levels, you get to heal 6 cats of fevers with feverfew and borage. And when you become an apprentice, you get to deal with 2 new issues slash ailments, burns and stomach aches. Burns are healed with burdock root and comfrey root, while stomach aches are with borage and juniper berries. I'm sure that someone who is far more familiar with herbs and their usages in these books can probably figure out if this is correct or not. Maybe they are, maybe they aren't. It wouldn't really bother me if they're wrong. I would just see this as like kind of an inaccuracy. So apprentices are going to heal 10 more cats, so basically you get up to 16 before you become a fully fledged medicine cat, as the game says. This adds 2 new issues, cuts on paws and exhaustion. You can fix exhaustion with juniper berries and honey, and cuts on paws with tansy and comfrey root. At about 41, you unlock a bunch of new issues of coughs, bruises, scant milk, dry paws, and sore throat, and these all have 3 herbs combinations, and you get a bunch of new ones like yarrow and catmint. This is where one of my biggest issues with the game comes up. In between levels, as you can see as I'm playing on screen, they don't introduce you to these new recipes or herbs before they just kind of pop in on your lists. And this doesn't allow you to pause the game because the game doesn't allow you to pause and look at the lists, or when you open the list, it doesn't pause the game, which feels really unnecessary. I feel like this is making each level, yes, more difficult, but extremely frustrating, especially once you start getting to the 4 combinations. I think a really easy fix would just be having the new additions pop up when you come to each new level, or allowing players to go into the pause menu while looking at the list of herbs that they have, the herbs and the ailments that they have, so that they can familiarize themselves as they're playing and can take breaks when they need to. It's, it's more complicated than it needs to be. I know I had to restart the game several times in order to beat it with these new herbs and ailments, just because, like, it was so unnecessarily difficult, and I had to keep trying several times to even memorize or vaguely familiarize myself with some of these. And you only get to see the full list unpaused if you finish/lose the game, because it'll pop up with all the ones that you have unlocked already. So you can do that at your own leisure after you have finished. If you have trouble memorizing these combinations or feel too rushed by the timer, I would completely recommend having them written down nearby or having screenshots open and easily accessible to you. The biggest learning curve comes in the final level, and if this game is marketed towards the tween age, or at least child age, like the books, I highly doubt that most people who are casually playing this are going to get very far. This is where my issue with the UI, or user interface, comes into play, and it totally screws with the players. It's probably a bit nicer on mobile than it is for computers, and this has been said to be a mobile-friendly game. But the UI is not, like, scroll-friendly with the scroll wheel on your mouse, and you have to use, you have to point and click to scroll over. It's a little bit more difficult to find what you're looking for if you're just using the scroll wheel, which I subconsciously use because I associate scrolling easily with the scroll wheel. So, it's definitely not the best UI in that direction. Also, the timer feels really inappropriate. Like, it feels like it goes too quickly, especially if you're opening up the list or scrolling through and you fail a combination. If you fail once or twice in the combination, that cat has already left, and if you're spending time looking on the list, there's a very strong chance that the cat has left already, especially if you're looking up a higher, like 4 herb combination. It's just, timer is not good, and the timer and the UI just really give me this impression that, much like the tabletop game that they put out a few years ago, which I would love to talk about one day at length, they just give me this distinct impression that whoever they hired is familiar with how these things work, but doesn't know anything about simplifying game design, and they really didn't get anyone who plays video games to playtest it, or anyone to playtest it at all. This really doesn't feel like this can be a game beaten by casual players or beaten easily by players at all. It took me having screenshots open on the side, constantly pausing, and several tries, I mean, like 2 hours worth of work to even get above 200 points. It took, I mean, there was a lot that went into playing this, and if you're just casually playing it once or twice, you're probably not going to get that far. And you can probably tell by my gameplay that I had screenshots open the entire time, and I rearranged it halfway through to be more effective, and that's because you really can't play this game without this. I think you can get through the first 3 levels when it's only 2 herb combinations without having to have any screenshots, but by the time you get to 3s and 4s, you're probably wasting more time looking for stuff, and it's a lot easier to have the screenshots or list on the side, pause it, and be able to just look at your leisure. I know I spent plenty of time pausing, looking, memorizing, what I had to do, setting myself up for the best possible click to get through it as quickly as possible, because, you're spending so much time trying to scroll through all of this that it's just the timer and how the game is set up isn't as effective as it could be, and it really feels like we're setting players up to fail if they're not good at memorizing, or if they're not good at getting through this quickly. So around 81 cats healed, you are in sight of the end, and in sight is the exact verbiage used, right? That's the exact words. You can probably see it on the screen at some point, but in sight. This also adds ailments with 4 herbs. Personally, I suck at this game, which is maybe a little surprising considering the scores that I get, but if I didn't have screenshots open, I would have failed almost immediately. And there's probably someone out there who can get much higher than I can, or beat it at faster than I can, or memorize all of this better than I can. So if you want to, go ahead and do it if it's effective. But this game, because of the skills that it relies on and how it's only palatable towards people who are good at these things, this doesn't feel like a game that is going to be effective for all people. They either need to scale it down, or only make it available towards, adult-aged people who are really good at memorization and matching and stuff like that. My biggest issue with this game comes in the final section, 1, there is no clear goal in N, and any number that you could reach, they don't tell you if there's an ending point, you just go. I wouldn't mind if this was an endless game like Flappy Bird, where you just keep going for as far as you want, but if that's what they want to do, please don't have ending screens or screens in between levels where it gives the impression that there is an end goal in mind. Please don't use the words "in sight" when there is no possible ending, because my impression was, oh, I'm at 81, maybe I can get to 100 or 150 or 200. No, in sight just meant broadly. Change your wording and be more obvious if this is where you're gonna go, because really you're making it more confusing than it needs to be. And 2, it introduces 4 herb combinations, and there are 10 of them. They have never dropped 10 in any of the level upgrades. They don't give you any forewarning that there are 10 or that there are 4 herb combinations. You just click on a cat and see, oh, there's, a whole bunch. And I only started getting a couple after many times of playing this, and you can probably see in my footage that I just would abandon the ones that were too complicated the second that, they popped up, in favor of the smaller, quicker ones to get through, because the 4s just felt like too much. I will say that having the screenshots, they were a little bit easier, and like some of the other ones, they were mostly all next to each other, or there'd be 3 next to each other with 1 like 2 away. So they weren't the most complicated, but once you have ones that are having you scroll through being on one side to go to the complete other, they're a little bit more complicated and probably the ones that you can abandon. Also, about the whole in sight ending verbiage, I got to 381, which is 300 more than when it said in sight and was still not finished. If the thing is that in sight, and maybe this is just me, insight implies a concrete ending. Insight, to me, implies that there is going to be a cutoff point where it's like, oh, you finished the game and there was this many characters and you got, this many healed. You got a 84% or something like that, instead of just 84, something else. Like, this feels like it wasn't managed the best, and if you're going to use level capping, having him at 6, 16, 41, 81 doesn't feel good. You should have it at like concrete, easier to deal with numbers, like 5 and then 15 and then 50 and 100 and then 200 maybe, like something that's like exponentially bigger, sure, but is, simple. Working in 5s or 10s is a lot easier than working with prime numbers. I don't know, just like 81 and 41 wouldn't be my choices of numbers. You also are going to have to lose a few cats here and there, which is like really frustrating for, I was trying to go for a like no deaths run a few times, and it's given the timer and the complication of some of these formulas, there is really no way that you can get an all healed victory without some sort of wizardry or, you know, setting it up differently. Like this game just really feels like it has a few strong points with how it, with like gameplay, but none of all of them are working together. None of them are helping each other. They're all just making this more complicated than it should be. If I had any correct verbiage for like video game analysis or complication, because I don't know any of that, I would give a more helpful review, but I'm not. I just play a lot of video games, and I can just tell you that this was a good idea, but I think it needed a few more runs. I think it needed to go through a few more people. I think it, honestly, it needed to be play tested. You needed to have someone play test it. I firmly am with, like, you need, if you want to make sure that your game is not, like, messed up, you need to have someone play test it, and not just anyone. You need to get a speedrunner to play test it. This really felt like this game needs a play test, and it just needed a few more passes. It also feels like a game that is not going to be palatable to anyone who has, like, is like neurodiverse and has difficulties with some of these things. It also feels like it's not going to be available to younger people who this, or people who or I think like easily stressed out by like time pressures. This really just doesn't feel like a super palatable game to as many people as possible, which would be fine if the goal was to have it be open to like just these people who, but the thing is, it appears to be set up for everyone, but it's not, and that's, I mean, not bad, but it's difficult and frustrating, and I'm just gonna move on. So, with gameplay out of the way, let's talk about some of the things that are good and bad about this, and just why I think it's important to talk about this game. I've discussed a lot of the bad things already, with scrolling issue, lacks of prompts, just being thrown right into the deep end, no overall game testing, how this feels like it was really undercooked, and to beat it you have to get a lot of luck, or I say to beat it, but to really get like over 100 or over 200, you just need a lot of luck with easier prompts. You really just need to have screenshots open. This doesn't look like it's a game that is going to be kind towards casual players or players who are not mentally equipped with the ability to memorize all of these exact recipes. It's just, you know, there's a lot of things that are wrong with it. However, there is also a lot to compliment about this game. The visuals, for one, are super simple and super nice. It's, you know, it's not too busy to look at. It's not distracting. I found myself easily falling in love with it. I would prefer if there were a few different like changes to how the UI was set up visually, like if all of the herbs were in rows, maybe like rows of 5 or 6. So it was easier to click on these, you didn't have to scroll, but you know, that's just preference. I think it was set up nicely. I think the colors were, you know, were great. It wasn't distracting in a lot of those ways. I think it just could be more accessible with, you know, the UI, which is not to say that how it's laid out visually is not, like, it's good. In the way of characters and character designs, I am so happy that they hired a artist that draws cats. I am so happy that they didn't use the minis. I'm sure that this was like a difficult decision because if you know anything about the Warriors team with like merch and games and stuff like that, they are so into their mini designs and they will not let go of them. I mean, they have made some truly atrocious looking merchandise because they will refuse to let go of their mini designs and actually hire someone that is good character artist, a good merchandise artist. And I'm glad that they got someone, and whoever they got, it is absolutely beautiful. Like, I love some of these character designs. I think they're really dynamic. I think they're fun. They're so pleasing to look at. They use some great colors. And I wish I knew who it was. I really, really wish I knew who it was because they don't credit anyone in the game. They don't credit anyone on the website. I don't know if they have any official like list of artists that work for them or anything like that, but whoever it is, beautiful work. Really, really love it. And if they wanted to use this artist again or continue using this artist, they need to make another character maker, like a pick crew style character maker. I think that would get a lot of traction. Get rid of the mini maker, just make a new character maker. I think that would be awesome with this artist, especially if this is the beginning of this artist with the Warriors team. In the way of games, I would rate it probably a 6 out of 10, which I think is being pretty charitable towards this game. I really liked it at the beginning. It got increasingly more frustrating the more they added, and the timers didn't really seem to be balanced out. While the UI is really frustrating on computer, it's probably a lot better on like a tablet or a phone. And while I would rank this game lower, I am really holding it high with its character designs. Like, I would have ranked this like a 4 or a 3, but I really think that the character designs are something to praise. I would also say that it has a decent, if not like headache-inducing replay value. I know I've sunk like 2 hours into this game already, and I did pretty well at it. Would I recommend this game? Yeah, surprisingly. I want people to play it. Probably just the first 3 levels. I think get to 100 and then you can just like be done with it. I think you've got the full experience of this game. But I want people to play it just so that we can push more Warriors games and the Warriors team in the right direction. I'm afraid that if this game doesn't get enough attention, then we won't be getting another game anytime soon. And if this is the first game that the Warriors team is putting out, or the debut of this artist for the Warriors team, I think it would be really, really promising compared to all the other things that the Warriors team has put out before. I, for one, would love to see some small, like, bite-sized games, so long as they have people playtest them beforehand, and so long as they're made for a younger audience, because this is complicated. It is unnecessarily complicated. I don't think a child could do that well at this game, and I think that they need to slow down, chill out, make an easy, not so complicated game. It doesn't need to be difficult. It doesn't need to be anything super intricate. Just make a nice, simple, cute little game. People would play it even if it's, looks like it's made for kids or something like that, because there are plenty of people out there who will play games for kids because they're fun. So this is the new Warriors game, official Warriors game. It was put out on the official website and it's by them, so it is our official game. It's not what I think anyone would expect when hearing that there's a video game made by the official Warriors team, but it's not terrible, and it's not great either. I think the game's just good, and yeah, that's about it. I would like to see more people talking about it and playing it. If if this video gets traction with some big creators in the Warriors community, I would love to see, other people reviewing it and talking about it, and maybe, I don't know, doing challenges with it. If you can beat the score I got, which my personal best is 400. That's where you saw me finish my recording. That's where I gave up because 400 was a lot and there was no end in sight. I was going to keep going forever. I would say if you are going to play this, have a notepad or some screenshots. I'm going to put my Google Doc page in the description, hopefully like a shared version of it, because that's all combinations on one page. And yeah, if you made it to the end, thanks for watching. I know this was a little bit different than my usual videos, so I guess let me know if you enjoyed it, and I should have some other videos coming out hopefully soon. Have a good day.